First, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the traditional land of Treaty 6 First Nations. I also want to thank Align for hosting us here, as well as Sonia. Thank you very much for your hospitality. This morning, I am pleased to be here to announce financial supports for Alberta's dedicated foster and kinship caregivers through Budget 2025. These incredible individuals help make a meaningful, long-lasting impact in the lives of so many by opening their hearts and their homes to children and youth in need. Foster and kinship caregivers are there to support some of our province's most vulnerable young people by providing a safe and loving environment that helps them stay as closely connected as possible to their culture and their community. We know that caregiving is a challenging role that requires plenty of training, time, energy, and compassion. We also know that cost of living challenges are impacting caregivers right across the province, similar to other Albertans. Budget 2025 is meeting the challenges facing Alberta with responsible decisions to fund the priorities of today, while helping ensure our province remains the best place in Canada to live, work, play, and raise a family. Alberta's government values the incredibly important work of our foster and kinship caregivers. We will continue to listen to them and make sure that they have the supports that they need. And that is why I am pleased to announce that through Budget 2025, we are increasing caregiver rates by 2% on April 1st, 2025, an investment of $3.1 million to support foster and kinship caregivers with the cost of raising a child or youth in their care. Now, this builds on last year's rate increase of 4.2% to help ensure that compensation for Alberta's caregivers keeps pace with their day-to-day expenses and supports the important skills and training that they have. These increases will help caregivers cover basic costs like food and clothing, as well as babysitting. This will make life more affordable for approximately 6,800 caregivers and help benefit more than 10,100 children and youth right across Alberta. As part of Budget 2025, we're investing more than $11 million to enhance supports for caregivers over the next 4 years, and as part of my mandate to improve the system for supporting our most vulnerable children. Through this funding, we have been able to provide active licensed foster homes with coverage for up to 5 one-hour counseling sessions for caregivers or family members in the home. Foster caregivers also know what it takes to provide a loving and supportive home, and that's why we've implemented the Refer a Foster Caregiver program. Through this program, foster caregivers may be eligible to receive $500 if they refer someone who becomes a new licensed foster home. After all, Alberta needs more loving caregivers right across the province. People of many ages who are single or partnered or who may or may not have kids at home. People just like you. We're also continuing to provide supports for caregivers, helping youth transition to adulthood in a more culturally responsive way of supporting kinship caregivers. As caregivers, you deserve support so that you can worry less about finances and focus on what you do best, providing children and youth with a strong foundation for their futures. We know that there is more work to do, and we will continue to listen and look for more ways to improve our training and supports to help support your caregiving journey. I would also like to take this moment to thank Melissa Jones, the CEO for Alberta Foster and Kinship Care Association. Unfortunately, she was not able to join us here today, but she did start this conversation with my team long ago to make sure that we were aware of the cost of living challenges facing families and caregivers, and I am thankful for her tireless advocacy for so many children. With this message and collaboration, we have been able to deliver on both the rate increase in June of 2024 and now today's announcement totaling 6.2% increase to caregivers. Melissa, thank you so much for your hard work and collaboration to make this a possibility. And I'm sure the foster and kinship caregivers would be thankful for your incredible work in this sector. I also just want to thank AVCA and the Aligned Association of Community Services and the thousands of caregivers right across our province. Thank you for continuing to open up your hearts and homes to give young people the support they need to grow and find success. My ministry remains committed to supporting you as you work to help give the children and youth in your care a good foundation for the future. The work you do matters, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Turton. On behalf of Align Association of Community Services, I'm pleased to welcome all of you here today. For nearly 60 years, Align has represented the diverse needs of Alberta children, youth, and families. Our member organizations are making an important difference in homes and communities all across the province, just like Alberta's foster, kinship, and permanency caregivers. That is why I'm so pleased Alberta's government is investing more than $3 million to increase caregiver rates by 2%. This increase, building on the one from last year of more than 4%, will help families cover the cost of raising a child. This is crucial for caregivers everywhere and is something Align's service provider membership recognizes as highly important. After all, caregivers help kids feel connection, stability, and a strong sense of cultural identity. We must support our current caregivers while inspiring new ones to step forward, sharing meaningful stories about why caregiving matters and the profound impact it can have. Today's announcement will help caregivers continue to do what they do best, offering caring, safe, and stable homes for vulnerable children and youth. On behalf of Align Association of Community Services, thank you to the Alberta's government for this investment and to all caregivers for their dedication and commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the formal portion of the press conference, and we will now move on to questions and answers. To ensure that we can get through as many as we can, we will be proceeding with one question and one follow-up as usual. A reminder for reporters to please state your name and outlet before starting. Is there anybody in the room who would like to ask a question? Perfect. Thank you.
Eric Bay, Global News. Minister, you kind of put out a call out there for some more foster parents. Is there sort of a number you're looking for? Is there a shortage, or what's sort of the ideal range at this point?
Well, we know that foster caregivers and kinship care providers that provide that one-on-one care that some of our most vulnerable and complex kids have. So we're hoping for a huge amount of potential fostering kinship care providers to enter the system. The more, the merrier, because we know it makes a difference for kids. So I'm going to be having that conversation over the next couple months. But, there's kids here in Alberta that need loving homes. And I think foster and kinship care providers can provide that. And so you will hear me in a huge fashion doing my best to tell about the benefits for foster and kinship care providers, because it does make a difference in the lives of children. It's extremely important work, and we need more foster and kinship care providers in the system.
And just a follow-up, I think maybe for Sonia, I know you mentioned the help that this change will be. Can you talk about maybe the biggest challenges facing, caregivers at this point, financial and all that, and will this be enough to cover that?
Before you do that, can you pull the mic down?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you. I think the increase is an important step in recognizing the financial challenges caregivers face, and we appreciate the government's commitment to supporting them. I think caregivers will appreciate the everyday expenses, food, clothing, transportation. It's a really good recognition of the vital role that caregivers play. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one left in the room, operator, can you please put through our first caller?
Your first question comes from the line of Hiba Kamal Chufi from City News Edmonton. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Hiba Kamal Chufi with City News here in Edmonton. My question is about the Sexual Assault Center of Edmonton funding. State's pause intakes claiming it's due to provincial cuts, and the funds in question is, they told me, is $1.8 million. They said they were told the 2-year grant would be renewed, but that didn't happen in budget 2025. For the minister, how do you explain that to the public?
Yes, well, operational funding for sexual assault centers right across the entire province has gone up as a result of budget 2025. It was clearly communicated that this was a one-term grant when it was issued a couple years ago. Based upon those conversations with the Association of Alberta Sexual Assault Centers, as well as sexual assault centers throughout the entire province, it was deemed as one of our highest priorities to have more flexibility when it comes to the grant arrangements, and that's why we have actually met their call and increased operational funding for sexual assault centers throughout the entire province. We know that this is going to make a huge difference for so many women and children and families that are fleeing sexual violence and trying to begin that healing process. And at no other point in Alberta's history has this much funding gone into sexual assault centers, and I'm very thankful for the work that they have done up to this point.
Hiba, did you
just
have a
follow-up, today? Sorry. So yeah, I have a follow-up question, please. So states turned actually to the community, and today they have an announcement of a little bit over $80,000. Just what's your comment on that? Just because they saw there's funding cuts, now they're turning to the community, basically for more money to make that wait list a little bit short, because they said it could be up to 18 months wait list now.
Well, again, there has been no cut to the operational funding for sexual assault centers throughout the province. In Budget 2025, there was a clear increase to operational funding for sexual assault centers. We know that this is going to make a difference for so many women, children, families throughout the entire province of Alberta. And as I stated before, this was clearly communicated that these were one-time grants that were provided a couple years, but it was really based upon the conversations with sexual assault centers throughout the entire province over the last 12 months, when they said and clearly asked for long-term sustainable funding when it comes to their operations. And that is what we have done as a government. We continue to increase the funding for sexual assault centers with the $1.5 million increase that we did this year. And we know it's just a start. We look forward to having those ongoing conversations about how we can support survivors, women and children in their darkest days when it comes to these needed supports.
Thank you. Operator, can we put through the next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Janet French from CBC Edmonton. Please go ahead.
Good morning. So you mentioned that in December, these supports for permanency rates were also going up for adoptive families. But 2 months later, some of these families were informed that you would reintroduce income testing for supports for permanency's basic maintenance rate. So families earning more than $180,000 a year with adoptive children wouldn't receive it. Adopted families say that they were promised this money until their children turned 18 and were never told that it could disappear. So how do you justify planning to revoke this funding in the budget?
Well, there is still a number of soft supports that are for families, even if they were making over $180,000 a year. Those include supports for respite, counseling, treatment of a child in a residential facility, support for cultural travel for First Nations children and youth, medically necessary orthodontic treatments, as well as other supports. So the moves that our government made when it came to some of these income testing was really to put us into alignment with some other government programs that were also introducing income testing at this point.
I hear what you're saying. Those additional ones say that those supplements that are very specifically targeted don't come close to covering the costs of some of those services that their children are using. So the basic amount is, I was looking at the rates, like $20, $30 a day, depending on the child. How do you justify removing that specific component?
Well, again, regarding your specific question, the majority of foster caregivers and kinship caregivers are well under the $180,000 threshold. We're going to continue to have those conversations with affected families and look for if there's additional outlying conditions in which some families may be onerously financially burdened by this, but I think by far with the additional supports that we've given to foster and kinship caregivers, the response has been pretty positive in terms of we're doing our best to help meet the needs of the greatest number of foster and kinship caregivers here in the province.
Thank you. Operator, can we put through our last caller, please?
Your last question is from the line of Jack Farrell from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. My question is also about SAFE funding. Just to be perfectly clear, are you saying here SAFE not getting this 1.8 million in renewal funding will have zero impact to the services available to sexual assault victims?
It was clear from the Association of Alberta Sexual Assault Centres, as well as survivors and other sexual assault centres throughout the entire province, the requests for reliable, long-term, and flexible granting arrangements. That's why we made the decision to increase the operational funding for sexual assault centres throughout the entire province, which has been supported by the Association of Sexual Assault Centres. It was clearly communicated at the time in terms of the grant that you referenced that it was a one-time grant. And there's still opportunities to have conversations in the future. If there are specific initiatives that sexual assault centers would like us to be able to pursue, but it was upon the direction and the advice of sexual assault centers that we went with this approach to help increase the operational funding. Again, as I stated earlier, every sexual assault center in the province has received the same amount of funding or more in this year's budget compared to last year.
Jack, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, you mentioned the specific initiatives part there. I'm wondering what comes to mind for you, and I guess I'm wondering if you foresee a future where we actually just see a repeat of SAFE comes to you guys saying, hey, we have 2-year wait lists for counseling. We want to address that as a specific initiative. Do you foresee that just happening again here, or is that just fully off the table?
Well, there were wait lists and the need for services from sexual assault centers throughout the entire province. And we realize that there's demands on those services. If it doesn't matter if it's in Medicine Hat or Lethbridge or Grand Prairie or throughout the entire province. And so the need for us to be able to increase operational funding for all sexual assault centers throughout the entire province. We know that families and women are going to be able to access this funding, and we do know it's going to make a huge difference when it comes to the healing process for many of these families that are fleeing sexual violence.
Thank you, everybody. That brings us to the end of today's press conference.